On this next panel, we have Nike's infrastructure and long-term position, which is a beautiful segue from what we just saw, and I loved what this panel really represented, which was you cannot replace the human contact, right? So as we do that, I want to introduce the team to you that's coming up in the panel. And if you would, panel, just go ahead and start making your way to the risers. And as I introduce you, we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to begin with Rick Thomas, who's our moderator. Hello. Rick is the host of Yachting International Radio and founder of Rick Thomas Yachting Development. And our panelists today, we have Bert Fowles, the VP of Brand and Marketing for Suntex Marinas. Yes. Bert, you got a camera here. Rightly so. JC Weller, the Senior Yacht Advisor, Royal Yacht International, is here. Joel Shine, the CCO of Director Shipyards as well. And last but not least, I know this person. He sounds familiar to me. John H. Rees, my fellow Lumency partner here, founder and CEO of Lumency Affiliated Channel Marketer Technology. Welcome, panel. Thank you so much as we get started here. Let's take it away. Rick?
There's something like Microsoft. Okay, here we go. Wow. In famous words of one of my best friends, Tim McCumber, Yachting is fun. And I think that's a great way to kind of kick this thing up to say is we're here together as a yachting community. Again, we're here because we have a passion for what we do. And so with that said, I want to introduce my panel. You know some of these guys really, really well, some a little less so, but I think amongst all of us, there's almost 150 years of cumulative experience thinking, and the subject is interesting. So to my right here, we have Bert Fowles. Bert, can you give us a couple minutes of your background, please?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you. I'll make this quick. I work for a very small marine company. We have about 100 marinas across the nation, about 34 in Florida, and we have about 50,000 slaves. It's an honor to be in front of you today.
JC.
Hey guys, my name is JC Weller. I work for a Monaco-based brokerage called Global Superyacht International. We got offices in Miami, St. Bart's, Dubai, Turkey. We specialize in 50 to 100 ton meters, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. And Joel.
My name is Joel Shine. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer here at your shipyards. We operate 4 shipyards in the East Coast, the 2 in Florida, and specializing in super yacht service and refit. The one in New York is construction, commercial and construction, electric fiber. And happy to be here today.
Fantastic.
Good afternoon, John H. Rees. I feel like the guy from Hair Club for Men, which is I'm not only the owner, but I'm a client. So born and raised in Miami, built my own boat at 15 years of age. So I'm actually a lawyer, which is kind of weird, but I love technology, and I've actually captained vessels as large as 250 feet across the Bahamas and everywhere else. So I think I can bring a very good perspective, having lived my entire life in Miami. My family owns Sabre Racing, if you guys know that brand. And right now we're building a 208-foot boat called Lumen through the Lumen Sea technology. And it's going to be the most sophisticated, technologically advanced vessel ever built.
That sounds amazing. Thanks, John. And I'm Rick Thomas. I host Yachting USA, a podcast on Yachting International Radio. I had a consulting company for Rick Thomas Yachting Development. I'm building a couple boats right now for some clients and representing a shipyard and having a lot of fun in this industry after I was 44 years doing this. So good to be with you guys today. And this topic is talking about Miami's infrastructure, long-term positioning. And I think I'm gonna give a little quick segue here that Miami, I've been coming here for decades, and I think it's a beautiful, amazing city that continues to grow. And you've got your boat park, Watson Island. What a backdrop we've got. You see the skyline of Miami behind you. There's a lot of great reasons to be here, to be seen, to be present in this community. There's brokerages, Edmondson and Burgess have set up offices down here with a few others. They're here for a reason. Great place to meet with high net worth individuals, buy and sell. But then we're going to talk about what it takes to keep boats here and service boats here and maintain the fleet, and what this area looks like in the maybe the aggregate of the entire southeast Florida region, which I think is important to kind of pull up together. So with that said, let's start with Joel. You have your insights about the servicing boats, and with Miami being a global yachting hub, can its infrastructure realistically absorb the continual fleet growth?
Yeah, thanks. It is important to talk in terms of South Florida because to grow capacity for super yacht service and refit, and that's what I'm talking about, shipyard perspective, not necessarily marinas. That's a whole other problem to accommodate both 50 to 60 meter plus space. We're able to expand less trouble capacity in our shipyards or 100 meter 50 boats. And so that's why once we reach the limit of give it sort of the follow with actual size of the boat, once it's 60 meters draft, it becomes a very big concern, and there's no longer any shipyards except for places up north that can accommodate this. So that's why we expanded it up to Fort Pierce, and we had to land there for the disabled features to accommodate all the very large boats. So I really don't see the actual shipyards, the infrastructure being a problem. It's more about developing more people and trades to accommodate work. That's something we'll come back to.
As always, I think that's fundamental. When you think about people like Fasos is relocated here, and he's got 100+ meter ocean code that is magnificent when you see it on the ocean. You'd probably be surprised to learn that you can't get that boat work done very well. And holy crap, here I am with this beautiful asset, and I gotta go all the way back to Europe to work on it.
Well, we can accommodate that, but
I thought you might.
you can't. But we have that big for me, so that's
right.
Pressure for big boats.
Yeah, absolutely. JC, what's your insight on this?
Guys, from a sales years, the demand is here and it's here to stay. We're seeing more boats come, not just in quantity, but in size. We're seeing 90, 80, 70 meters coming to stay longer than usual. We just need, as a sales view, infrastructure, to make them happy.
Yeah.
Because if they don't feel comfortable or happy, then they lost her.
That's the truth.
So it's here. And last year, 472 super yachts sold, 34 meters and up. That's supposed to double in 6 years. Mm-hmm. Guys, COVID was 6 years ago. Imagine how quickly that went.
Yeah.
So we gotta be ready for this boom, because this is the boom that turns, a city into a metropolis. The wealth you need to spend, and we gotta make them happy. What should we change?
Absolutely true. And John, you're building a big boat. If you thought about where you're going to park it, where you're going to work on it, how is this boat going to be supported?
So the interesting thing is, where I live, I have about 11 feet of depth behind my house, but the channel is only about 8 feet at mean high tide. So many a times when I was taking out my big boat, which I sold about a year ago, I had to get my captain to anchor it, and it's a mess. So I wanted to echo what JC said. So it's here to stay. It's coming. Miami's the epicenter of almost everything now. The climate is great. You got a lot of places to go to. It's not easy to build infrastructure to service vessels, that are 80, 90, 100 meters. A lot of the things that happen on large vessels happen by people coming onto the vessel, but when you need to haul it out, you got the running gear, whatever the case may be. So the interesting thing is, going directly to your question, the boat I'm building is a 7-foot draft. It's jet engines,
right.
not jet engines, jet driven,
Yep.
With caliper jet. It's 10,000 horsepower, be like 37, 38 knot boat. I think what you're seeing also is that the hotel industry, the sales industry is going to go to large vessels being built because that's the new world. I want to make sure that people understand this. 75% of the world is water. Humans are 50 to 65% water. We're attached to the water in some way or fashion. I have a passion for it. I think a lot of us that are here do. I think there's got to be a lot of thought process into it, because if you have a vessel that large, 80, 90 meters, then you have the crew, and they got to stay somewhere. They got to make it to where they're going. So a lot of things come into play when you're dealing with, large vessels like that.
It's so multifaceted, and there's so many layers to this onion that need to be peeled back for sure. And to be clear, I'm a huge advocate for trying to attract these big boats, so keep these boats here. Bert, you bring the numbers to the table, never disappoint as far as that go. Talk to us about the fleet. It's growing. The waterfront infrastructure is not growing, which it is what it is. We see marina expansions. How is this affecting the use of property, use of the real estate down here, and how are we accommodating this fleet, in your view, coming from the marina space?
Well, the first thing everyone in this room should understand is 18%. 18% of the world's fleet over 24 meters is currently here as of today. That's what the numbers say. Let me break that down for you. There are 1,300 vessels in West Palm Beach, Miami-Dade, and Broward. That represents 18% of the world's active fleet. Let's keep that number at 7,000. Now, let's get really deep in the numbers. You know who has the least occupancy? Miami-Dade. 290. 290. Fort Lauderdale, Broward, has 657. Okay. West Palm comes in second at about 390. I think what John just said, and a lot of what Panel said, the demand is there, no doubt about it. But the infrastructure, when we're building infrastructure for marinas, we compete with other interests. And that boils down to a three-dimensional approach. You've got the height of the vessel, the depth of the vessel, and the lands attached to it. And comparing that to a developer, and amazing developers out there, it's complex. Retained earnings. And just to keep the conversation rolling, 8% of the businesses in the shipyard industry are less than 50 people employed. We're all small business. So I think looking at capacity and the availability of infrastructure boils down to a lot of economic models, which I think we will have to address as a team going forward.
Okay, so going back to the fundamentals, sir, is Miami-Dade, is this where we're talking the Global Superyacht Forum Miami, does it have the infrastructure to park multiple 100+ meter boats? What does this look like, and what should we be thinking of as a yachting community about how we're going to accommodate the growth of the fleet?
I think the other panelists will have some great insights as well, but let me break this very brief. If we don't act as a community toward yachting and define an industry, we have failed. Can anyone here define the super yacht industry? I can. Some people use 80 feet, some people use 100 feet. The point is, as a community, which means we influence political policy, and we look at certain things. John mentioned dredging. Can you imagine not having if we have in our bodies have arteries that are too small, but then the final way is large, it means nothing. So I think there is capacity, but I think earlier, I think Jay spoke about the opportunity for Miami is incredible. But without infrastructure, we are behind the 8 ball. And I say this with utter respect to everyone in this room. There has to be a serious discussion about capital investment, but also investment in the very industry we're speaking of.
Thank you. A perfect segue. I'm going to direct this towards. I'm sorry, John. You want to?
I want to add what Bert said, and I want to explain to people that live in Miami, and I've had large vessels here in Miami. The biggest problem you have is the depth. Biscayne Bay, you can't get a large vessel into Biscayne Bay. My last vessel was an 8.5 foot draft. you can't go more than 6-7 knots, even if you can get to the paces, because the boat will go any faster. So it's gonna bounce off to the bottom. We don't have where to do it. The Miami River, you can't turn a vessel around of that size for sure. The width is not there. So where are you gonna do it? The reality is that you got Government Cut, and then you got, Hawks Channel going down south, but the Keys is more shallow than anywhere else. So when you go from Bayside south, there's nowhere to do anything. So I don't know what they're gonna do with all these big boats. The only marina that I can say that are two marinas, one is Bert's is there and on Iowa Beach. And then the other one is Island Gardens. On Gardens, and that's it, because you have the cruise liners going out to the port.
Yachting in Grand Miami. Right there.
That'd be good.
Former. Yeah, they just have to make sure to go.
So that's, like I said, this is a great segue into the start of this conversation, that we are actually a tri-county community.
Correct.
And that we really need to look at the power and the financial strength we have when we consider ourselves as a tri-county community, because when you put it all together, now you've got the places that talked about. You go to Port Everglades, there's a lot of deep-water docks you can bring boats to. Correct. Joel's in process of developing Fort Pierce, which I think in the years to come is going to be an absolutely go-to destination. But I'm going to ask a question that JC, hopefully you jump in, not Joel for sure. I spent a lot of time in Europe. I do a lot of business over in Europe. I have had the privilege of touring and seeing the shipyard infrastructure and the investments that have been made over there. Certainly, the way waterfront properties owned has an impact on this. But what we're missing here in the United States, particularly in the southeast United States, I believe, is a lack of investment. We need more investment into the shipyard so we can go toe to toe and convince the high net worth individuals that bring your boats over here, to keep them over here and provide them the infrastructure to take care of the boats over here. Where is this coming from, and how are we going to attract this investment?
Well, you're right. There's a structural issue that we have in the United States versus Mediterranean, for example, and that those cultures, governments prioritize the waterfront for commercial use. They either own it and lease it to people to provide jobs at a favorable rate that we can't compete with. Here, we prioritize amenities for hotels. So you can't be surprised, and that's not something we're going to do anything about. And this is if that, but it's a reality. So the investment, we need to first the government to provide more small shipyard grants for development, and then we're super project equity and things like that. But it's definitely a structural issue that's not going away, and you really don't have a solution for sure.
Yeah, well, from a sales year in, the Europeans want to be here. The people from the Middle East, that's going to be a big change, I believe. I think what's going on, we're going to see a lot of boats from the Middle East come from the Med and then here by another year. So we got to be ready for that. It's tough. So a lot of the guys stay in Fort Lauderdale and Palm Beach. As much as you want to have them in your backyard, that's a reality. But you got to be honest with them and tell them, hey, I can't keep it here. You got to be, 30 miles north. But I know Blackstone is investing a lot of money in. No? Well, the big Hey, what I read. I know, we have big companies investing in Miami. I won't say in the quarter. But I know we're doing our best. Just know that there's a lot of demand coming more than ever, so we have to be ready. And on the sales, we see it. We just had to deal with the hard stuff, the logistics, the parts, the service, because a small part can take over 2 months sometimes. And these guys, they don't want to wait.
No. The supply chain, the infrastructure, it needs to be solidified. It needs to be improved. I'm fortunate to be one of the GDIs, and so I could top off people and organizations like Blackstone without worrying too much. And I speak my truth when it comes to, I think, what's good for the industry, what's not, so I'll leave it at that. But I do think that if we are going to give up our waterfront space to the kind of being used as high volume residences, we're going to find ourselves pushed out of South Florida and forced to build our infrastructure elsewhere. So we need to start thinking about what that looks like and plan for that and figure out what we need to support the large yacht industry while it is here in South Florida, and how we try to keep it here in South Florida. What do you think, John?
So here's a real issue. You know, boats last a very long time. Like airplanes, cars aren't the same as boats and airplanes. The manufacturing process is mostly coming from Italy. Most of these Italian boats, they don't care about draft. So if you try to buy an Italian boat and take it to the Bahamas, good luck.
No.
You're not gonna get, very deep into the Bahamas. It's all shallow. So I see that the industry is going to change in its entirety, and all these large vessel manufacturers are going to have to look for boats that don't have that kind of draft. Because it doesn't work here. And I think somebody here said it, maybe it was Bert, it was JC. How are you going to dredge? You can't dredge as quickly as you can change the industry in building yachts that don't require that kind of draft.
Correct.
Right, so that's the big challenge that I see for the manufacturers of large vessels, which is why when I'm building works for me, I live here and I'm gonna fit behind the house, and still, I got the box space, but I gotta worry about the depth area.
Yeah. And it's an interesting segue there. The Army Corps of Engineers just withdrew their permitting process for Port Everglades expansion. The dredging issue there, and that was kudos to a whole bunch of industry people who looked at it. What was going to do to the tourism and the infrastructure, the reefs, and all its that. So, hand on the back for those who stepped up and put that as a priority. But that doesn't change the fact that you're right. Deep draft vessels are limited where they can go.
And I think the value of those vessels has got to go down in comparison to the vessels that are being built with new technology, just across the board.
Right.
Because they're not going to be able to do it. It's just like an old can't land in certain airports because it needs too much runway to be like take off or down.
Yeah, I agree.
Joel, what you saw as well as come just at the Europe track, instead of trying to make the water deeper, was change the boat designs.
Absolutely.
And so large catamarans are the way it's going to happen. And definitely in South Florida, very good. You can see it already in the Sunreef, how it's taking off. We're looking at some builds, some 140 foot builds that have the draft of 5 feet to 5 feet. So that Floridians there, and no problem. You can park that boat. It's very wide. They're going to charge you double at the marina, but you can park that anywhere.
Right.
Well, something to also say, is the age of these buyers. That has changed over the last 5-6 years. We've sold, last year, 3 of our biggest boats were sold to 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds.
I love it.
Crazy, but and these guys like to go fast, want to be in the Bahamas, want to be in shallow water. So the new generation of yachting is coming. So people are adapting, to the draft and
That design's a visit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the age of the yacht is changing drastically.
Fascinating. So are we going to be able to keep up with this here in South Florida? What do you think?
We have no choice. It's Miami. Miami can absorb anything. We have to be ready in terms of, I have the easy job. I plant the seed, I sell the dream. The hard stuff, again, is always the technical team, the service team. And that's what we need the most of. It's always been that way.
Right.
But now, due to the demand, it's a little more crazy now. So I think if we can invest more on that side of the business, which I know we talk about it, but actually do it, people will come and stay longer and not just, be here for a seasonal, make it permanent stay.
I like it. Now before I open up to questions, any other comments you guys want to layer in this conversation?
Well, I'd like the audience to realize this number as well. 2023, the annual and economic study was done for Biscayne Bay. Guess how many billions? Someone should know in this audience. How much billions does Biscayne Bay add annually to Miami, the white market? Pick a number. 10?
64.
$64 billion. $64 billion from Biscayne Bay. How many jobs?
How many?
488,000. Why do I give you those numbers? No one sees us. They see the big white boat and they ask who the owner is. That's it.
That's true.
Where we are faced with as a collective community is championing an industry that is important. As a joke, which you will never forget, I believe we should replace the orange, God bless the orange industry, on the back of our license plates with a boat. I know that says a lot of just, let's call it puffery, but at the end of the day, if we don't act as an industry, thank goodness for people like Captain Sandy, cigarette boat racing. You add a certain level, Captain Kerry, when you see an industry step forward, we don't define our industry. Tell me a standard of the yachting industry. Go ahead, I'll wait. Tell me a standard.
5-star.
Okay, that's not an official term for yachting team. I'll tell you what it is for 5-star. Gotta pick up the phone in 3 rings. Small businesses, we gotta worry if the phone bill was paid. Do we have enough paper in the copier? My point is, especially thanks to Sakip and forums like this, we're not here during the boat show. That is an amazing thing, because it's a race car.
Great, Ben. I want to add this to the thing. Again, I have a little bit different perspective than some of the other folks that were born and raised here. If you think about airplane travel, and I go back to airplane and car travel, because we have a lot of technology around that. And boats have pretty sophisticated technology. But if you think about the way that boats navigate, what they call the ATON system, which are the aids to navigation, it's a piece of plywood with paint that doesn't even reflect. It's actually, how many people are losing their lives, how many people run aground, the picture from the Marinas that died on the jetty. That's why I focus on safety. In my opinion, we have a huge issue with people out on boats that don't really know what they're doing. A lot of them, are drinking and doing things that you normally can't do because you have law enforcement, stopping at a corner. That doesn't happen with boats. There's so much water and waterway that we really need to focus on the safety aspect of it. And as a result of that, we're talking about depth, we're talking about, where do we service these vessels? But I'm focused on how do we make sure that the boats are navigating, people have the equipment that they can connect to in the water, as opposed to just having a vessel that has technology. The best example I could give you is that I gave you a car with the most sophisticated GPS and everything, and I put you into the jungle, and you're trying to make your way somewhere. There's no roadway, there's nothing, you don't know where you're going. That's exactly what the ocean is. You have GPSs that many times are off. That's why my effort personally is focused on this Lumency project, because it's the way to connect the world of boating to the vessel and connect it to the Coast Guard for emergencies or whatever the case may be. And again, I get really upset when I see young people dying on the water, people getting run over, running into channel markers, and there are a lot of deaths that occur in the ocean. There's probably between 600 and 1,000. Which are too many. Those are the people that get severely injured. It's a big problem.
John, that's commendable, and I think you're onto something with what you're doing there. So I'm going to turn this over to our audience, who's probably desperately waiting for lunch. So thanks for hanging in there.
One question, Matt. Please, sir.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hey, Jeremy Katz here, Dockside Pros. Really grateful to be here today. You guys are amazing. Very interesting panel. I was just talking to my friend Graham here with MTS Yachts. And what is your thoughts on dredging with losing 5 shipyards recently? And how do we go to Tallahassee and be able to get that back?
Could you kind of restate that, Jeremy, in the context? When you say losing 5 shipyards, dredging, where are we talking? Are we talking about dredging New River or the Miami River? Or are we talking about?
Yeah, and how do we balance that between sustainability and protecting our oceans with getting that land back? All this land is developed, the condos and everything, and so are you guys in favor of dredging?
That's a tough one. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a huge environmentalist, and I'll always put the health in the ocean ahead of commerce. And yet I'm also business owner and entrepreneur, and so I mean, keep people employed, half a million people that are working here to stay employed. So there has to be a compromise found somewhere. You know, so, boy, that's a rabbit hole. If we go down that one, you guys are gonna miss lunch. This is insane.
I can answer that quickly. It's a two-edged sword. Number one, if anyone that's known about the Miami River, the amount of, you know, old cars and dead people and everything that they pulled from the river when you clean the river is a very important facet of why the Miami River is what it is today. So I think you really need to look at where you're looking at. I think what's happened at the river of Miami is incredible. There was an event last night at Sea Spice, and I was just standing there seeing how many boats go back and forth, and super amazed because, you know, I grew up in Miami, and the Miami River was like the worst place on planet Earth. In fact, I was given an opportunity to buy a marina for like $2 million 15 years ago, and I was just telling my girlfriend Arden, I said, wow, I'm an idiot. Yeah, so you just don't know, but I think that, again, it depends what you're doing and why you're doing it, but something like the Miami River is a great place to just clean it all up, because then you get a lot more employment, and you're able to really make good use of it. The other thing is that we gotta get rid of the governmental bureaucracy. For you to do anything on anything, it just takes so long that, you know, people don't even get to experience or enjoy what it's meant to be. So we got to get rid of a lot of them. I think Jeff Bezos said that in one of his recent interviews that, you know, the building permits and everything else, it just got to speed up.
Yeah, I hear that, and it's probably a good idea. Any other questions from the audience before we wrap?
You speak really loudly? We'll end with the best for last.
So, I'm Deborah Racky with American Yacht Agents, and I deal with a lot of the largest yachts that come into South Florida. I think that probably one of the biggest issues is that we need to protect our work the waterfront. You know, dredging is great and that's important, but if we hurt all your waterfront over your storage facilities development, that's when we lose the shipyards.
Thank you, Deborah. I think that was what I was trying to allude to earlier, in portion with being able to talk vocally and freely about it. I'm absolutely 100% on board with that.
Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. A big round of applause for our volunteering.